Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where I'm stuck in hell. My name is Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here for more Harry Potter.
You're always so pleasant when we start these videos. It makes me feel good about myself.
Shut up and tell us what the chapters were about.
Adrian reads Harry Potter chapters 27, 28 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So, bit of a breakdown. We have chapters 27, the final hiding place. The kids have escaped via dragon and leapt safely into a lake. Voldemort vision reveals that the final Horcrux is indeed at Hogwarts. So the kids are going to go to Hogwarts and have no idea what it is. So
didn't we stumble upon that idea like 150 pages ago?
Yeah, but now we know it's there. We just don't know what it is. And how easy is it to find a single object in a castle? It'll be a breeze. We'll be fine.
Would have made possibly an interesting book.
Yeah, I genuinely can't find books that I know that I own in my own house. Whatever. Moving on. Chapter 28, The Missing Mirror. How'd you feel about this chapter?
What chapter?
The Missing Mirror.
What chapter?
This is where Aberforth Dumbledore, which is Dumbledore's brother, saves the kids, and we discover Ariana was killed in a crossfire between the brothers, Grindelwald, blah, blah, blah. Aberforth has given up, but Harry swoons him and just kind of reinvigorates him, and he reveals the last unguarded tunnel into Hogwarts. How fucking convenient.
You know, it could have been interesting. I mean, it's not... These sorts of ideas are not, A, they're not original. Restoking the fire within someone for an old revolution. But B, they're normally pretty interesting. What's that Mel Gibson movie, The Patriot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was an interesting movie.
It was.
It was an idea a lot like that, wasn't it?
And do you know why it was interesting?
Because of Mel Gibson?
No, I actually really don't like Mel Gibson. Oh. He kind of scares me, to be
honest.
Oh,
he's a terrifying individual. That's why he's interesting. What about because of his son, Heath Ledger?
His son, Heath Ledger?
In the movie, Heath Ledger's his son.
Oh, he is. I think you were trying to tell me, Heath Ledger was Mel Gibson's son.
No.
Oh, sir, is it
that would have been too much masculinity in one place.
Anyway, it's interesting because it's believable. We see the old revolutionary, like you say, dusting off the chops and getting back into the fight because it's believable. This, very much like we had last time we had Harry Potter, doesn't seem to be believable. It's just there to be convenient. And I think that's my biggest complaint about these chapters is, again, we're given a situation which is entirely unrealistic, but it moves the plot forward. Therefore, hey, this is a good option. Throw it in.
And someone pops up exactly where they have to be, exactly when they have to be there with the exact right excuse.
Right place, right time, right person. Everything falls perfectly into place. And, if you would have told me it was magic, hey, I'd believe it. But we have a book that's literally about magic, and it's not.
Or, so, you've got Aberforth, who is the brother and one-time confidant, right, of the greatest wizard who ever lived.
Okay.
Now, what if... instead of having to use the excuse, my Patronus looks a lot like Potter's, he was able to disguise a Patronus to say, no, my Patronus transformed into a stag.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I can do this as well.
That goat looks like a stag.
Even if it wasn't really a stag or really a Patronus. If someone was able to meld the magic to their will, as opposed to just, oh, no, it's a goat. You've never seen a goat before? He's never seen a goat before. See this jackass?
He's talking to the cronies, though, and let's be honest, they're not intelligent, they're not inquisitive, they're just there as brute force.
Because that's this series.
Because we follow the stereotype again. It's just unrealistic to me. So anyway, I'm going to be done complaining about that for a moment. How did you feel about these? Anything you'd like to really touch on?
I've got a question. If Voldemort was, quote unquote, less than a ghost, what's the thumb for?
I'm counting, because usually when your questions, there's multiple points that I'm tying together.
No, actually, this is actually a fairly simple question. If Voldemort was, quote unquote, less than a ghost when he was sneaking around outside of Hogwarts, sipping the blood of unicorns and whatnot, what good are all these Horcruxes? Isn't that what it's supposed to be? You die, one of your Horcruxes is able to take over? And if it's not, and someone has to reestablish that Horcrux as you, how come no one else knows where they are?
Okay.
So I guess there was a couple parts there.
There was. It's with the thumb.
You have the other thumb?
I count with thumbs. That's actually a fairly decent question. I think the best excuse I could give for it is the Horcrux will keep you alive. It will keep you alive, but being alive is not living a full life. So my assumption would be the unicorn blood was a bit of a crutch, maybe, to try to get him back to full vigor until he was capable of taking form again. Because we do remember in the fourth book when we had to basically regenerate Voldemort.
Right. That's what I'm asking is, if that is the case, so was that Moldavort from a Horcrux?
I would
Had
assume
Moldavort died?
I either would assume that he had died or he had been weakened to the point of being near death and therefore had to basically rejuvenate himself, where he could have used a Horcrux, I would assume.
Right, so he was so close to perishing, right? So close to perishing that he was on the brink of non-existence.
It's true.
Like there were several times that apparently he almost just was wiped out, right?
It honestly is a continuity issue. A continuity issue I have not thought of. Again, I mean, let's be honest. We know how this works. J.K. Rowling was like, oh, he was so weak. And then 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, she's like, Horcruxes.
Yeah.
Horcruxes.
Yeah. Which, I can't blame her. But I just don't I guess I just don't understand what good the Horcruxes are. If you were so close to nearly being blotted out of existence, wouldn't you tell one of your henchmen where one of your Horcruxes is, have them go get it, and have them wipe you out here? Well, even then, why have you put these Horcruxes in all these places which are impossible to reach if someone has to reinvigorate the Horcrux?
It's also never explained how exactly a Horcrux works. Like if you have to, touch it to become live again. Right. But we are seeing Horcruxes being destroyed.
And in the first book, didn't the Horcrux, first book or second book, didn't the Horcrux possess Ginny?
It did.
So so is possession the way that a Horcrux gains your body, ambiance, somethingness?
That Horcrux was a bit of a unique situation. For some reason, it had embodied the soul of Tom Riddle, and therefore he could communicate through it. Blah blah blah.
So does that mean that he killed someone when he was the age of the Horcrux in that novel?
I would assume yes. I believe that is what that is getting at.
So if you had created Horcruxes, what Dalton would you want to go back to?
Oh dear. None of the above. I would like
You think you are in your perfect hipster form?
Well, that's the thing. No. I know that I'm not, but I don't want to go back to any younger age.
Yeah.
That sounds absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to go back in time, but you could have your younger body now with all of your knowledge.
Well, it's a good idea and concept, the rib won't hurt all the time. I'll feel better getting out of bed in the morning, but I just imagine I'd rejuvenate and my hair would just
well, yeah,
and back to life. I can't deal with this again.
So Dalton's Horcruxes are all lockets of hair.
All the combs he has ever used. All magic combs. Okay, so we do get, again, an idea here that's brought up. The idea of unharnessed...
You're so ridiculous in your hipsterdom.
Thank you. Unharnessed
Maybe
magic.
It's like a beard bead.
What's wrong with a beard bead?
That's your Horcrux.
Do you need a beard bead? I have extras. No. We can put them in.
Oh, no. I've always thought about doing one in the middle.
See, that's what we are off track. That is what everyone does. I think it doesn't look good, so I went 2 on the sides.
Now it just looks like you've got handles. I'm just going to put that out there. It looks like you've got handles.
Maybe I do.
Okay. That's... What a Horcrux.
What a Horcrux. Anyway, let's talk a little bit. Oh my, this just went. Whoop. Let's talk a little
bit of different spelling.
Let's talk about the idea of unharnessed, unstable magic. So we had the idea of Ariana, who basically was unable to control her abilities because they had never been quite, what's the word? Mastered. She wasn't given the knowledge as to how to harness these abilities.
She's never been trained.
She's never been trained. Therefore, they became unstable, which is actually something I kind of like. I'm kind of about this idea.
I would too, if it wasn't such that there are individuals in this world who might have magic capabilities and not know it. Right?
Okay.
So Harry Potter, are you trying to tell me that if he had never been to school, this would have happened to him? What about Hermione?
Yes.
Because isn't Hermione's a mudblood?
Yes. If they have magical abilities and they are untrained and unharnessed, eventually they will become unstable and uncontrollable. It's kind of like a build-up from within you and you have like no outlet.
Sounds like a metaphor for sexuality.
A little bit. But I'm about it. I think it's well done. It's well put in there. I wish it would have been expanded upon.
It's a cheap trick.
But I kind of like it. So I don't know. It's whatever.
It's a cheap trick to get sympathy.
You think so?
From your reader. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. You've got this poor little girl who was never trained and was oh so powerful, and there was a catastrophe, and both brothers feel like they're to blame. It's a cheap trick. I mean, I'm not saying it's poorly done. I'm not saying it's bad writing. I'm saying it's a cheap trick.
Okay. And we also get a little bit of a sympathy card for both Aberforth and Albus, because we find out that basically in the crossfires, someone there is responsible for her death.
Yeah.
And that's a rough card. That's hard to deal with. It's a very adult subject in a children's book. So I think there's some good things going on in chapter 28.
Yeah.
I just don't think they were ever capitalized on, which is usually my complaint.
There's some bad things going on, too.
We got some bad things?
On page 565, we get this quote. She had one of her rages. This is about what we're talking about. She had one of her rages, and my mother wasn't as young as she was. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? My mother wasn't as young as she was. My mother wasn't as young as she used to be?
That'd be a little better.
My mother was not as young as...
Not as spry as she once was.
What is the sister's name?
Ariana.
My mother was not as young as Ariana was?
Okay.
So you've got some pronoun confusion, but even if you unconfuse the pronouns, the sentence doesn't really mean anything. 566, we get this little gem. But he did... Okay, let me go back. We'll start on 565. Bit of a come down for Mr. Brilliant. There's no prizers for looking after your half-mad sister, stopping her blowing up the house every other day. But he did all right for a few weeks. Till he came. He did all right for a few weeks until he came? I mean, I guess these are the problems of reaching maturity. But he's not talking about Dumbledore. He's talking about till he came, about Grindelwald.
So, lesson learned, if you're going to be writing a novel, maybe sit down and put some thought into it. Make sure it's not going to be misconstrued.
It's the sentence level stuff here that's taking you out.
Okay. Back to my whole complaint against continuity, because this seems to be a reoccurring issue every week at this point. Every week, something amazing happens that was just out of the blue and saved the day. We have this man, Aberforth, who runs a business in Hogsmeade. How do they pronounce it? Hogsmeade.
Yeah, it's me.
So when I first read it, I always pronounced it Hogsmeade, and then the movie came out, it was Hogsmeade, and it's thrown my world off forever. Cyrus Black I always called Sirius Black.
It's
Vice
Cyrus?
versa. It's Sirius Black, not Cyrus Black.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. Confusing. Anyway.
No, Sirius is how I've always read it because that's how it's spelled.
Well, when I was a very young man and reading it, I read it as Cyrus.
No, you didn't. What you did was you pulled a Dalton where you see a confusing word and skip over it, making a noise.
Perfect. Cyrus. Anyway, this is a man who owns a business in Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
These kids have been frequenting Hogsmeade for how many years? They went in the third year the first time?
And does he own a business?
He does.
What business does he own?
He owns the inn that they go to.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why he takes them down to the basements, because he owns the motherfucker.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, man has owned this business. Who knows how many years? It's been here the whole time. Kids have been going here for 4 years. People have been going to Hogsmeade forever. Nobody just happened to just bring that up, be like, oh yeah, Dumbledore's brother owns this one. We should go here. This is the nice one.
Looks just like him.
Looks just like him. Spitting image. Nobody's ever accidentally tugged on his robe and be like, oh, sorry, wrong one. It just happens that, like, right at the end of book 7, he's like, oh, by the way, this man exists.
Yeah.
Just pisses me off.
I don't know. It's not, I don't know.
Nobody knows at this point.
It's just such, it's bad at every level. It's bad at every level, right? Conceptually, it's terrible. Writing-wise, it's awful. Character development, there is none.
Okay.
Right? Every level you can check off. Harry Potter checks none of the boxes in a positive manner. There's the yes column, the no column. Okay. We're just straight nose, baby.
But when you look over at that, sells a lot of books.
Yeah.
Big old check mark.
Big old checks.
Big old checks. I do think something well was done, though, again, in this chapter. Try to bring up the good and the bad. Up until this book, we have always seen Dumbledore the God. Dumbledore the Untouchable. Dumbledore sits up in the tower looking over the castle, and he is the Almighty.
No, he sits in the tower looking over the girls' dormitories. Don't forget that.
We've had this conversation, yes. If you would like to go back to a previous video, we realized that Dumbledore may have been a pervert. But anyway, sits up in the White Castle, all to his own. He is untouchable. This book has done a fairly decent job of humanizing him. Bringing him back down and making him more realistic, realizing that he has flaws. And that is part of the hero's journey we've talked about a lot. You have to realize, the master was not, everything he was cracked up to be. He's learned everything he could from Dumbledore. Now he has to take the reins. So I think on that level, we're getting some good work done. But again, this is one thing. This is one thing in an entire book that we found that'd be like, all right, that's good.
Well, there was one thing that really struck a chord with me, and I think that every reader has to find something with which to connect on their own basic level.
Okay.
And on 566, we get this quote. Grindelwald, at last, my brother had an equal to talk to, someone just as bright and as talented as he was. That would be nice,
Really?
It sure would be nice.
Really?
You just have to find something in literature that you identify with, and it's a personal struggle. And I think that's well done.
Yeah. Are we done here? You got anything else you want to say about the Harry Potter? Because I can move on if you'd like. Just let me know whenever it's convenient.
What have you got?
Well, let me know when it's convenient. So let's talk a little bit about this next Horcrux. People always like to see, Adrian speculations, Adrian guesses, right or wrong. I hate you so much.
Didn't see that coming, though, did you?
It was good. It was well played.
It would have been nice if you had.
This is what I do every week when we can film due to blizzards. I come down here to get insulted. It's wonderful. It's magic.
You drive an hour down.
I drive an hour here to just be completely emasculated so I can drive back in silence. I don't have a radio, so silence the whole drive home. Anyway, people like to see Adrian speculate.
If that's where we're going, I've got one more thing to bring up.
Lay it on me.
568. Aberforth seemed lost in contemplation of his own knotted and veined hands. After a long pause, he said, "How can you be sure, Potter, that my brother wasn't more interested in the greater good than in you? How can you be sure you aren't disposable, just like my little sister?" That is the theme of the movie Casino Royale.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Casino Royale? The
James Bond.
The James Bond. So I think it's a remake. It's from the first James Bond book.
The last James Bond movie I watched was GoldenEye.
Okay, so I think it's the one, either one or two movies after that. I'm not very heavy on the James Bond lore, but I do like Daniel Craig, and it was the first Daniel Craig Bond. And at the beginning, there's this big fight sequence, and they're shooting in the streets and all this stuff because they're at basically it's like a street casino.
Okay.
And James Bond is watching a bomb maker, and his partner, he says something to his partner, he's to your right or something like that, and he goes, "I'm sorry?" And Bond says, "Take your hand off your ear." "What did you say?" "Take your hand off your bloody ear," because that letting people know you've got an earpiece in. And it starts a big uproar, right? So James Bond has to chase this guy through a construction site, through an embassy, across the streets, pop, 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 shooting, things collapsing, everything going to hell. And I think he gets terminated. and he sneaks into M's office, and she comes home, and she notices something on the table, and she knows he's there. And she says, "What are you doing?" And he goes through the whole spiel or whatever, and he says, no, she chastises him for all the chaos. And he says, "I'm sorry, I thought one fewer bomb maker in the world would be a good thing." And she says, "That's the idea, Bond. One fewer bomb maker. You have to have some idea of the big picture." And later in the movie, it comes around that Bond thinks that he's been sacrificed for this greater good, because by sacrificing Bond, he looks like he's about to die. They got the big bad guy, or know where he is, figured out who he is. But that's the main theme of that movie, the greater good.
Okay.
Don't be sure that you're not sacrificed to the greater good. That was in like 2006. I don't know when this book was published. 2007. And I'm not saying that J.K. Rowling stole the idea. I just wonder if there was something in the British Isles circulating that made that idea prevalent during that relative time. So that was, what year were the subway bombings? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head, no. Not a clue. Couldn't make an educated guess.
I couldn't either. I know it was post 9/11. But I don't know when exactly. I wonder if it was something with that, because you look at American writing post 9/11, and there's all these different reactions, and all these writers have different ways of addressing the situation. You all right?
Yeah. You've read
out over there?
Casino Royale, haven't you?
Yeah, we read it for one of our classes. Yeah.
Well, I guess the idea would still be the general gist. I mean, it would say be a published idea.
Right, but I mean, what was it at that time that was making the idea resurface in British writing?
J.K. went to see the new Bond flick.
Right, which, and maybe it wasn't a big thing all over. Maybe it's just the two that I'm happening across. James Bond, who is utterly British, and the Harry Potter series, which is utterly garbage. So.
And British.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. Just figured we'd get that one in there. Feel good about that. We should review Casino Royale one of these days.
Should.
That'd be fun. We could do
Maybe we should go on a series of Bond runs.
A Bond run?
Yeah.
As long as we can film every segment in the casino.
Okay.
Everyone. There has to be a casino segment.
You get clearance on that because you're the casino guy.
They won't mind at all. They're completely fine if you film all the background.
Yeah,
It's no big deal. But anyway, it is a good point. Obviously, there's something going on that could have sparked this a little bit, because it does seem a little out of place. All of a sudden, again, just throw this concept out here, which is a pretty heavy concept.
It comes from nowhere in the book, by the way.
It does. But, again, had they capitalized on that, and that was the theme of this novel,
right,
we'd have a better novel. Anyway, speculation time. Adrian.
Yeah.
People like to hear it. We are going to Hogwarts.
Okay.
What are we going to find? What are we going to do? What's going to happen once the kids go to Hogwarts to find this Horcrux?
There's going to be a battle with Snape.
Okay.
They're going to figure out that, I imagine as dystopian as Harry Potter can get, that Slytherin run everything just like the, whatchamacallit used to, the Gryffindors used to.
Okay.
There's going to be the Horcrux probably in Diddledor's office.
Okay.
That's all I got, really.
Okay.
I think that's...
We'll see what comes of it.
Yeah.
I always like to give a little speculation. Adrian, anything else you'd like to talk about with chapters 27, 28, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I think that's pretty much it.
That's what I've got. So,
yeah, we're almost done with this thing.
Yeah.
How many chapters are there?
36, and 36 plus 1.
Let me 36 plus 1.
There's an epilogue.
Oh. Oh.
Yep. So we will be back next week. You sound like a Mitsubishi. Anyway, we will be back next week with more Adrian Reads Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, chapters 29 and 30. We are going to read about the Lost Diadem and the sacking of Severus Snape.
You sound like a Sonsabichi.
I'm glad you're excited about it. So if you like this kind of thing, make sure you join us by pushing the subscribe button down below. We try to do Adrian Reads Harry Potter.
Sacking?
What?
It's a sacking?
It's a sacking.
Sacking will always be related to Monty Python and the Holy Grail for me, so J.K. Rowling can't have it.
Fair enough. If you like this kind of thing, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. We try to do Adrian Reads Harry Potter every single week, weather permitting. And we will be back next week with more Adrian Reads Harry Potter. Give this video a like as well. And if you'd like to help us create more content like this here on Stripped Cover Lit, there's a link as always to our Patreon to be found in the description below.